The Fulbright program and the work of One to World has tremendous meaning to me, as my life has been defined by the interconnectedness of our global community. In the early 1970s, when the US opened its borders to encourage immigration of scientists, doctors, and engineers from abroad, my parents came here from India with only $400 in a suitcase. They knew little of America, had no friends or family here, but sacrificed the world they knew to pursue a better life for their children, for me and my brother. A classic immigrant story. I was born a few years after their arrival to the States and grew up cherishing both my American and Indian identities. My parents' cultural tenets centered around education, family, empathy, and faith. These values, quite unexpectedly, led me to Croatia in 1997, where as a 20-year-old junior studying engineering at Duke, I had the opportunity to work in a refugee camp with Bosnians who had fled their homes due to the civil war in Yugoslavia. Candidly, my parents thought I had lost my mind when I told them I was headed to Croatia, but of course I went anyway. Although my goal in going to Croatia that summer was to help people in a war-ravaged region, even though I really had no skills with which to do anything to really help, it turns out that I was the one who benefited most from the experience. It's easy to think of refugees as destitute people living in some faraway place, very unlike our own. However, these refugees were in the middle of Europe and on the picturesque Croatian coastline, which you guys saw a picture of. The people in the camp were doctors and lawyers and teachers in their native Bosnia. Yet as soon as they fled their homes, they became refugees without citizenship or access to basic human rights like healthcare. And although they had little to their names and were destined for the United States to restart their lives, they remain to this day the most generous and hopeful people I've ever met. In many ways, they reminded me of my parents' own journey to this country. I developed a deep passion for the plight of the Bosnian people, and thanks to Duke and the Fulbright program, I subsequently worked on a microcredit project in Bosnia, a repatriation project for ethnic Serbs in Croatia, and my Fulbright research study on foreign direct investment at the University of Zagreb, under the tutelage of Professor Sumitra Sharma. If that name doesn't sound Croatian, it's because it's not. Professor Sharma, an Indian native, ironically visited Croatia 2 decades prior on an academic exchange program, fell in love with a Croatian woman, got married and stayed, and became a professor in Zagreb. Of course, I was able to find the only other Indian in Zagreb to be my academic mentor. These collective experiences were life-changing, as you can imagine, and they really showcased the power and resilience of the human spirit. These were lessons that only experiential learning could provide. None of this could have come from just sitting in a classroom. Importantly, I also got my first understanding of the power of capital investment and job creation as an effective lever of economic development, learnings which helped shape the course of my professional career. And while I often think my life journey is a lot like Forrest Gump, filled with many lucky breaks and a willingness to go wherever the road took me without a preordained destination, I'm forever grateful for the foundational experience I received living, studying, and volunteering in Bosnia and Croatia during that extremely formative period of my life. To this day, I remain committed to driving change and making a positive impact on our world, whether by investing in healthcare companies or dedicating time in the service of nonprofits. However, I feel dismay for the current state of our world. A global pandemic that shut borders, another tragic war in Europe, hauntingly similar to the one in Yugoslavia in the early 90s, the marginalization of women in Afghanistan, among other challenges. Just yesterday, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees reported that the number of forcibly displaced people, aka refugees, exceeds 100 million people worldwide. What a staggering and deplorable figure. Hearing the phrase deglobalization in the press today makes me shudder. And frankly, not something I ever expected to hear in my lifetime. And that is why the Fulbright program and the work of organizations like Wonder World are so critically important now more than ever. We must persevere in our own individual efforts to overcome these major threats to the connected world that we all cherish, so that our children may have the same ability to roam the globe freely as I did, and have the experiences which have so profoundly shaped all of our lives. As Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going. We must all strive to keep going through these challenging times to preserve Senator Fulbright's remarkable vision of global connectivity. Thank you again, Jen and One to World, for this great honor and for all of the great work that you do. Thank you guys very much.